have been here on the reservation all of my life. My grandfather raised me. So as he taught me the language, he taught me the different ceremonies, heard the songs, how they're utilized. When you're young as a young man, when you're young as a young lady, there's teachings on how to become an adult. So there's other things that pertain to the traditional of our youth growing into womanhood or manhood. Today, a lot of tribes don't speak their language, and a lot of the traditions and cultures haven't been handed down. Just a few tribes still practice their ceremonies and their languages. We as Ute Mountain are one of them. And it is very important as Ute people, as people that take care of these mountains in the 3 states that we're in. That's where our Aboriginal homes are, homelands. So we need to be able to go into the future knowing the path of where we came from and moving into today on what the technology is of what's going on around us as students, and to excel into the future for the kids that are not even here yet. Okay, in the past, tradition started with our elders and how they grew up a long time ago. So as we offer this to our youth today, the bear dance brings new life. The sun dance, which is a ceremony for all the people, so everybody is healed in the best way that they can. We have other ceremonies that have been handed down from the elders as we once roamed these mountains and were the stewards of these mountains. So we have the medicinal and the plants and everything that helps us out traditionally. And these things is what our youth need to really get a hold of and grasp and take into the future for their children.
A long time ago, thousands of years ago, our ancestors lived in these Rocky Mountains and lived up in the mountains in the northern part of Colorado, in the valleys over in Utah. They lived in teepees. Other tribes lived in rock homes. Anasazi built rock homes. Ute people were hunters and they were gatherers. They really didn't stay one place too long. They had teepees that they made out of different types of animal skins they hunted, and poles they got from the forest, and they cut those down and used those for the teepee poles. Part of this teaching is that as young people growing up, as Ute Mountain Ute tribal members, we need to keep in mind when you're growing up, you're going to continue to inherit that feeling. You're going to always pick up after yourself because you don't want to leave your trash or your sign of you were there. Our ancestors had been doing that a long time, and it's part of our blood system. It's in our culture, it's in our tradition, it's in our society.
Do you know what types of herbs there are?
Well, the Indian tea, sometimes my grandma would pick those and dry it, and we would use it for a tea if we didn't have coffee. But there's chokecherry, and sage is to use if you have asthma. You put it in the water, boil it, you mix it with other herbs, and then you inhale that. Different types of berries that grandmother would pick, and she would grind it and make a flour out of them. That canyon, that's where I grew up, along with all the animals. And we bathed. We would go to the river, and we would get water during the winter when the snow is melting.
What did the Ute people use to survive in the wilderness? Our elders in the past knew where all these water holes were. They made little water containers out of baskets and tree sap. They lined it and held it to hold water for them, so they carried water. But they knew where these water spots were too, and them water spots in the areas had Ute names. Guiasavach, Puvaya, Guiagat, the Sagar, Guiag, the Nuvakip, there's names that Sagar, Guiagat, the what, and Nuvakpuga, That's a story that has a spring on the Ute Mountain. There's a spring there. One of the elders, long time ago, seen a white bear taking a bath at that water hole. So when the elders seen this white bear, they ended up naming that water hole where the white bear was taking a bath.
It all goes back to the traditions from way back. It affected a lot of the families, and the assimilation that the federal government was trying to do to assimilate tribes across this country in different areas of religion, language, education. We started losing our culture and tradition. In the past, our treaty goes back to the 1840s and 50s. We started putting our children in boarding schools, and we had to adopt to different types of religions, and they asked us not to dress the way we do traditionally. They asked us to assimilate into wearing the non-native clothing and go to non-native churches, and the way they grew up was totally different than what we are, so we started losing our tradition, and there was a generation gap or two between the youth today and their grandparents and their parents. That substance abuse also came into play, so there was a generation gap, and we needed to really understand who we were. That's why tradition is really key for our youth to carry on into the future, so that they may not fall into the same gaps that some of their parents and grandparents fell into based on what was happening with the federal government, the assimilation process.
Hops up mothers knit over hops up knees up water monopoly the gun of it mamma to we to pinakuru hands up rock with water switch over who walk around up who walk on the car of the opening but work out in the
we once roamed most of Colorado and northern New Mexico and half of Utah. Our tradition and culture was very important to us before our treaties. And we really need to have our children today to reconnect to our past, because that identifies who they are and where they came from as Nuchu, as Ute people.